How you doing, Robbie? That was a good baseball game we went to, wasn't it?
Well, Shabbat Shalom. We got a little wrapped up in the early Torah study. We're starting a few minutes behind, but we will catch up. I have faith in Zev. So, if you haven't already said, and I'm talking, I suppose, to all you internet people out there, if you haven't said the blessing over your talit, you can say it with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kadishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef b'tzitzit.
Amen.
And we'll begin on page 65. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech v'vina l'chavin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shosani b'tzomo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shosani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shosani ben chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish sharumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rakah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasali kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaveh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li'oif koach. Amen, amen. And we'll continue on page, let's see here. 70, oh, actually. We could do Kaddish to Rabbanon if we did something Rabbanon. Okay. We'll just go to page 69. And at the top of the page, Rabbi Elazar said, whoever does deeds of charity and justice is considered as having filled the world with loving kindness, as it is written, God loves charity and justice, and the earth is filled with Adonai's kindness, loving kindness. Rabbi Elazar quoted this verse, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and the Torah of loving kindness is on her tongue. Anybody know what that's from? Eishes Chayil. What is the, you're not fair, you know this stuff. What is the intent of this verse? Is there one Torah of loving kindness and another one which is not of loving kindness? Torah study for its own merit, for its own sake, is a Torah of loving kindness, whereas Torah studied for an ulterior motive is not. And some may say that the Torah is studied in order to teach is a Torah of loving kindness, where Torah that is not studied in order to teach or to instruct is not a Torah of loving kindness. So with that, the idea is you're not supposed to make a profit off of this. You know, this isn't designed to give you great wealth. This is not a shortcut to wealth of any sort. This is learning it for its own sake so you have a better life, so that if you get wealthy, you can enjoy it. A little thing my dad once said, he was telling me about when he went, the morning he went for the interview with the company that he worked for his entire life. He said, I went to Minyan that morning, but I didn't pray to get the job. I prayed that if I got the job, I'd know what to do with it. And he stayed there for a long time. And because we said that, we can now go over to page 71. And it's a mourner's Kaddish. Anyone who say Kaddish? 71. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, bi'alma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei chon v'yomei chon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei olmaya, yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shmei d'kudsha b'rechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram b'yoma v'yimru, amen. Al Yisrael, v'al Rabbanan, v'al Talmidei Hon, v'al kol Talmidei Hon, v'al kol man d'askin b'oraita, di ba'atra hadin, v'di v'chol atar v'yatar. Yehei lahon ulachon shlama rabba, hina v'chista v'rachamin, v'chayin arichin u'mezona revicha, u'parkana min kadam avuhon di v'shmaya v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim tovim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Okay, you may be seated. We're on page 72. Let's take the last four lines. Tuesday, Wednesday, where's, no. Here we go, page 80. And we'll go, what's it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines down. And we'll do a little bit of the Psalm of the season. This is a song we do from the beginning of Elul till Hoshana Rabbah. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. One more time. Achat sha'alti me'et Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti b'veit Adonai kol yemei chayai, lachazot b'noam Adonai, u'laker b'heichalo. Lachazot b'noam Adonai, u'laker b'heichalo. Lulei amanti lirot betuv Adonai be'eretz chaim, kavei el Adonai chazak v'yames libecha, v'kavei el Adonai. Page 81, Mizmor Shir l'Chanukat Habayit LeDavid. הפקת מסבלי למחולי, פיתחת שקי ותעזרני שמחה, למען יזמך כבוד ולא ידום. אדוני אלוהי לעולם אודך. And now we get to regular mourner's Kaddish, which indicates the end of this section and the beginning of Pesukei de Zimra. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה,
Amen.
בעולמה דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה וזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם. Say, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירון ביומה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. And everyone else now can stand up with the people who are already standing. Baruch Shamar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Oseh v'reshit, Baruch Omer v'yosef, Baruch Ozer v'mekayim, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch mishalem sachar tov l'reav, Baruch chai la'ad, v'kayam lanetzach, Baruch bodeh u'matzil, Baruch Shemo. And you may be seated. We're turning to page 92. And I guess we're down to the second set of 4 lines. Didn't we do the first set last time?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Or let's tell you what. We'll go down to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8 lines from the bottom on page 92. We'll go all the way through from the 8th line to the last line. L'sichon melech ha'emori ki le'olam chasdo, melech ha'bashan ki le'olam chasdo, Zam le'nachala ki le'olam chasdo, nachala le'Yisrael avdo ki le'olam Chasto, Shev'shifleinu zachar lanu ki le'olam Chasto, vayifrikeinu mitzareinu ki le'olam Chasto, nodei lechem lechol basar ki le'olam Chasto, adulel hashamayim and we'll continue on page 80. Oh, I passed it already. That's okay. Page 96, we'll begin out Ashrei out loud. We'll say it silently, and then we'll conclude it out loud on page 97. Ashrei Yoshvei ve'itecha od yehalelu chasela. Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo. Ashrei ha'am shadonai Elohav. Tila leDavid rabim chalayim v'chashim chalayim v'chalayim v'chalayim. Tila Adonai, dahaber bi vivarech kol basar shem kol sholam va'ed, v'anachnu nevarech yam me'ata v'ad olam. Hallelujah. And at the bottom of 97, second line up. Yimloch Adonai li'olam, Elohai Tzion, Lidor v'ador continue on page 99, 5 lines from the bottom. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren li'amo, tehila lechol chasidav, Avnei Yisrael al provo, hallelujah, hallelujah. And on page 100, in the middle section at the little box. Hallelujah, hallelujah, v'tzil tzolei shama. Hallelujah, hallelujah, v'tzil tzolei truah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And on page 101, you're invited to rise. The first paragraph, 3 lines down. L'chol Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzag v'hahod ki chol b'shamayim u'v'haaretz v'lechol Adonai hamamlacha v'haminaseh l'chol rosh. And we'll continue on page 104. You can be seated. At the top of the middle section. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayamu, shonenu rina come on, God. That side, stay with Zev. And now, Ilufinu male shira, shira kaya ushonenu rina come on gala. Ilufinu male shira, shira kayamu shonenu rina come on gala, come on gala, come on gala. On page 105, we continue with the bottom of the first paragraph. Nehalechu nshabechu nevarechechu nevarech Hashem kodshecha kamor leDavid borchi nafshi et Adonai v'kol karavai et Shem kodsho ha'el b'tatzumo ruzecha hagadol v'kvod shemecha hagibor lanetzach v'hanora b'noratecha hamelech hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisa. Third paragraph, Shochinad.
Shochinad marav v'kadosh shemo.
Shochinad marav v'kadosh shemo.
V'chadu radanu tzadikim b'Adonai v'yesharim navatihila v'yisharim didala v'divrei tzadikim nidbarach v'v'loshan chazidim nidrama Kelev Kedoshim Tikadash
V'machalot v'vod Amchol B'Yisrael.
Lihodo l'shabeach l'melvameim l'hadel l'barech l'alel l'kalis Hakodirei shiot v'tishbechot David ben Yishai Avdecha Meshichecha.
You are invited to rise, page 106. Yishtabach Shimcha Ad Makenu.
Birachah Adonai me'atav yad olam baruch Adonai batish bachot el ahodot Adonai nivlot Habocher v'shivri zimra melech elchei olamim Yidgadav Shemirava
Amen.
Yolbahad Yivrach Yirvavudei V'yamelech Malchutei
Chayecha v'yomecha
V'chayidecha v'Yisrael Bagala V'nizmah Gari V'Yivrel
Amen.
Yesh Meirava Mivorach L'olam lo me'omaya Yidbarach Yidbarach V'Yishdabach V'Yidbarach V'Yidma V'Yidnasei V'Yidadar V'Yidaleh V'Yidalal Shemedi Gudejah
Berechu.
V'Hila Mikol Bir Lachada V'Shirada
Shvechata v'nechemata
Rahamiran B'Yoma V'Yimrel
Amen. 107, the Baruch.
Baruch Hu en Adonai Havivorach Baruch Adonai Havivorach Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. Join me in the beginning of the first of two blessings before the Shema. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or v'orei choshech osei shalom u'vorei et hakol. We continue to the bottom of 107 on our own.
Hametim.
108, El Adon.
El Adon al kol ha'masim baruch mevorach ve'vigon neshama gabo v'tuvo malei olam da'at devorah sovevi moto Hamid gael chayot ha'kodesh v'nedar b'chavod al ha'merkava zechut u'mishor livnei chiso chesed v'rachamim livnei chivodo Tovim me'orot shebara Elohim lo yitzaram b'dad ve'bigna uvaskel kol ha'chogura natan bahem ve'yahud mo'azim b'kelev tevel maleim leim mefikim noga gaer zivam b'chol ha'olam zemekim b'tzeitam b'sasim b'voam osim b'yeim ha'ritzon konam וכבוד נותנים לשמות צלח ורינה וזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אור והקים צורת הבנה שבח נותנים לו קודם המרום תפארת וגדולה שבעים ואבנים וחיות הקודש.
We read the top two paragraphs in 109 to ourselves. We're on page 110.
Kulam Uvim, Kulam Birurim, Kulam Giborim, Kulam Osim, Robertson Golam. V'chlab v'rchim et bihem, b'gdush al v'dahara, b'shiva ovizim, raham v'vach, m'shabachim. V'mfar b'marezim, v'magdishim, v'mahamlichim.
Et Shem Ha'el
HaGadol, HaGibor HaNorah HaKadosh Hu. B'nachal ruach, b'safar ruach v'nimah, kiddush ha'glam gechadonim, v'yarim b'yirah. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech Haaretz Kvodo. V'vadi v'chayot HaKodesh, B'rash Gadol minasim le'matzravim, v'madav shavachim v'yomrim, Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo. Le'al Baruch V'nadei L'melech. Urchadas al Zion Ga'ir v'nizgeh cholad u'meira le'ora.
Urchadas al Zion Ga'ir
v'nizgeh cholad u'meira le'ora. Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Baruch Shemo.
Yotzeh ha'me'ara.
Our second blessing before the Shema, indicating a wide spectrum of God's attributes. 111, Ahava Rabbah.
Ahava Rabbah Avranu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chem Milah Gdola V'Teira, Chamad Aleinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Ba'avur Avodeinu, Shebarchu V'cha, Shebarchu V'cha, Avinu Malkeinu, V't'lamdim Chukei Chaim, V't'chaninu Lamedeinu, Avinu Avaracham, Rachim Rachim Aleinu, V'teinu V'livinu Lehavim, V'avinu Haskel Lishmor, V'limod V'lilavim, V'shmar V'lasod, V'likayim et kol divrei, Talmud Toratecha, V'ahava, V'hareinu V'toratecha, V'dahabek libeinu V'mitzvotecha, V'yachil livavinu, V'yachava, V'lira et shemecha, V'lo nevot, V'yolam va'ed, V'lo nevot, V'yolam va'ed,
Ki v'shem
Kodshecha, Hagadol Hadarabadavu Nagila, V'nismecha Nagila, V'nismecha V'yeshuatecha. V'avienu V'shalom.
Sit.
Me'yaribak ha'nivodares, v'tolicheinu k'hamimiyu, ve'yartzeinu, ki el bohel yeshudada, uvahanu v'acharida mikol ha'vilajon, v'kiravdanu, V'shimcha ha'gadol, Selah, ve'yemet, li'od olecha, u'li'achedecha, ve'yahava. Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Ha'bocher b'amo Yisrael, b'ahava.
Amen. Shema Yisrael,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Ita, Ehi Adonai Elohecha, V'chol avav v'chol nafshecha, v'chol me'odecha, v'hayu hadivarim ha'ileh, asher Anochi mitzavecha, hayom alevavecha, v'shinata ha'vadecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivdecha b'veitecha, v'lechtecha ha'vaderech, v'shachvecha v'komecha, v'kashadam l'hodayadecha, v'yedadavod mininecha, v'chedav v'dam, abdudod beitecha, u'visharecha.
The next two paragraphs to ourselves.
Adonai Elohechem Emet, v'yatziv nafo b'kam v'yasher nama b'u'ah. V'yidor v'adahu k'am l'shmacham, v'chisonachon malchudah, v'emanato l'kayameh.
You may release the tzitzit.
Mahakenu melech avodeinu, golenu golel avodeinu, tzvedu tzveshuadeinu, podeinu matzilenu, melam shemecha, Elohim zulatecha.
Page 114.
Ez avodeinu atahu me'olam, magin moshiv nechmim lechem chotovu. Emet, 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 atahu rishon.
Oh, emet, 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 atahu acharon.
U'v'baladecha ilanu melech, melech Oelu Moshiach. U'v'baladecha ilanu melech, melech Oelu Moshiach.
Mimitzrayim galtanu.
Tilo lelio, Baruch mivorach, Moshe b'nei Yisrael chanu shira, v'simcha rabba v'yamru kulam.
You are invited to rise.
Mi chamocha ba'ilim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nahur adilon, osei feleh. Shira chadasha shbechugel im l'shimcha zvadeaham, Chachad kulam adovim lichu v'yamru, Adonai Eloh le'olam va'ed. Zor Yisrael, kulma be'ezrat Yisrael, Udi chudumecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, Kum aleinu, Adonai tzvaot shemo Yidosh Yisrael, Baruch Adonai,
Baruch Shema.
Yisrael.
Amen. We say the Amidah silently and standing from pages 115A or B, skipping page 116 and continuing from 117 to 120. If you need more time to finish your individual Amidah, please take the time to do so, or you can join us on page 115A for the reader's repetition of the Amidah, and you can remain seated if you like.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, El HaGadol HaGibur v'Hanora El Elyon, Gomel Chazadim Dovim v'Konei HaGol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot, v'Mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem, L'Mahan Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshe U'Magin, Baruch Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
Magin Avraham.
Amen.
Adagi Bor Le'olam Adonai. Melchim Edim Adarav Loshia. V'Lorin Adam. Mechal Kel Chayim Bechesed. Mechayim Edim Birachamim Rabim. Samech Nafim V'Ravech Cholim. Umadir Asurim. Umekayim Emunadam Vishenei Avar Michamocha B'Givurot Umido Melach Melech Mimi Umichayim Umach Meach Yeshua V'neman Adalachayot Medim Baruch Adonai
Shemo.
Mechei Hamedi.
You are invited to rise for the Kedusha.
Nikadesh et Simcha ba'olam, Geshem ze'makdishim odo b'shmei Marav, Kagadu v'yad nevi'echa, V'garazeh el zeh ve'amar,
Kadosh,
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 Kadosh, Adonai Tzevaot, Melech ha'aretz Givavodo. B'kol Rosh Gadol, Hare v'chazak mashvivko, Midnasim l'umat zirafim, l'umatam baruch yomehiru, Baruch kivod Adonai mimkomo. Kom chavakinu tofia, v'timloch aleinu, k'melachim anachnu lach, Madahoi Dibloch B'Zigon B'Karol B'Yameinu L'Lamed Tishkon Titkadash V'Titkadash B'Doch Yerushalayim B'Recha L'Dor V'Dor L'Nitzach Nitzachim V'Eineinu V'shivcha Eloheinu v'pinu le'muselam ba'ed ki el melch gadol v'kadosh Ada Baruch Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Ha'el HaKadosh.
Amen. You may be seated. We're on page 117.
Yismach Moshe b'matnach Chagagi Even Ne'eman Kaharatalo Kelil Tiveret Biro Shana Tata B'yam Levadecha Har Sinai Shnei Luchad Avadim Ha'ori B'yado V'chatuf B'hem Shemirat Shahabad V'chatuf B'hem Shemirat Shahabad V'chatuf B'hem Shemirat Shahabad V'chikatu B'toratecha V'shamru v'nei Yisrael Et HaShabbat Asoded Shabbat, Doda Meridolam, Bene Uvein, Bene Israel, Otile Olam, Bene Uvein, Bene Israel, Otile Olam, Kishish Yamim, Asadonai, Ed Hashamayim, V'ed Haaretz, V'yom Hashvi, Shabbat v'inavash, V'yom Hashvi, Shabbat v'inavash. V'lo nidada, Adonai Eloheinu, V'lebeaz Eloheinu chal tamag l'dei v'zilim, V'gam l'chadol ashkinu v'rehilim, Kil Yisrael, Amcha nidada b'hava, V'Yisrael Asher b'macharda, Ahamik Adeshe Shvi, Kolam Yizbu v'dagol mitzuvecha, V'ashvi ratzita bo v'kidashdo, Chebda d'habim ha'tagarada, Zecher l'ma'aseh v'reshit, Eloheinu v'Elohi avodeinu, B'tzevim nuchateinu, Kadesheinu b'mitzvotecha, V'tein chelkeinu b'toratecha, Sabeinu mitzuvecha, V'samcheinu b'shirvatecha, V'taher libeinu, V'avdecha be'emet, V'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu, B'yachova u'v'razah, Shabbat Kodeshecha, V'yanu Chova Yisrael, V'kadesh Shemecha, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 118. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'macha Yisrael, v'tefil Adam v'azim, v'd'avodah v'tefil beitecha. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'macha Yisrael, v'tefil Adam v'azim, v'd'avodah v'tefil beitecha, v'tefil Adam b'yava deka b'b'razon, V'ratzon damid avodat Yisrael lamecha, u'tefilatam. V'yava deka b'ratzon, V'ratzon damid avodat Yisrael lamecha. Ritzei, v'techesecha, hinenu b'shevcha l'tzion v'rachamim, Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch Shemo.
המחזה שכינתו לציון,
Amen.
מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כי לך רחמך, וברכתם כי להוד בחסדיך, מלאכם גיבינו לך.
Middle of page 119.
ויאכל יתברך וידבם שמך מקנת תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל החיים ידוך סלע, ויעלו עד שמך בימי. האל ישועתנו ושבתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני. הטוב שמך לוחמי להודות. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, ברכנו וברכה, המשלת בתורה, הקדמה ידי משה עבדך, המנורה מפירון ובניו, כל העמים הקדושך כאמור. יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאי אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך. יישא אדוני
page 120.
Sim shalom, tova uracha ba'olamchem, v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, v'alko Yisrael, amecha, b'cheinu avinu kulanu kecha, b'yarbanecha, b'yarbanecha nadada lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, sim shalom, Tova uracha ba'olamchem, v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael, amecha, Torat chayim v'yahavat chesed, tzedakah v'racha v'rachamim, v'chayim v'shalom, sim shalom, Tova uracha ba'olamchem, v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael, amecha, v'dav b'necha livarech, el amcha Yisrael, b'chayim v'chosha, b'shlomecha, sim shalom, Tova uracha ba'olamchem, v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael, amecha, Baruch Adonai, Amivarech L'mo Yisrael, B'shalom.
And we bid a fond adieu to Shacharit with the Kaddish Shalem on page 138.
Amen.
Amen.
Yesh meirava bivora, li'olam olam me'omaya, yidbara, yidbar v'shtabach, yidbar v'naseh, v'dar v'dar shemei, dekodesham.
Yechu.
Elam mikom berachata v'shivata, tushachadam nachamata, damram adama v'yimru.
Amen.
Yidkabel sodol vodol l'chol Yisrael, kadav v'hon v'shmaya v'yimru.
Amen.
Yesh lam robin shemai v'chayim alinu v'chol Yisrael v'yimru.
Amen.
Osel shalom b'mamav, v'yasel shalom aleinu, v'yalko Yisrael v'yimru. Amen.
And you may be seated for a very brief period. We're turning now to page 139, and we'll begin the Torah service.
Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai, v'ein k'ma'asecha, malechudecha, malechut, kol ha'olamim, k'memshadecha b'chodor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai ilah, le'olam va'ed, Adonai oz li'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Avarachavim hitiva v'tzonecha et Zion tivnecha omot Yerushalayim tivnecha omot Yerushalayim kivecha livad badachnel melech eram b'nisan adon Vayivin Sahara, Vayomer Moshe, Kulma Adonai, V'yafutzu Oyecha, V'yanusu Misanecha, Mibanecha, Ki Mitzion, Keitzei Torah, Ki Mitzion, Keitzei
Torah, Devar Adonai, Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan, Torah. We continue on page 139, page 140, second paragraph, Be'an Arachetz. Kadisha. The ark is closed, and we will repeat after the Chazan on page 141.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael. Eloheinu. Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Baruch Adonai Iti, Uderomima, Shemo Yachedam, Lecha Adonai, Hagidura, Hagidura, Hadiberet, Vanei Tzadok, Yichol Hashamayim U'Baaretz, Yichol Hashamayim U'Baaretz, Lecha Adonai, Abraham Hacham, Vami Nasei Le'oleru, Romemu,
Romemu,
Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu,
Ve'ishtachavu, Ve'ishtachavu,
Aharon Raglav,
Kadoshu, Romemu, Romemu,
Adonai Eloheinu, Ve'ishtachavu, Ve'ishtachavu, Le'har Kodsho, Ki Kadosh, Adonai Eloheinu.
Okay. It's good to schmooze while the Torah is going around. Okay. Now, who wants to read a Hebrew verse? Because we're talking about one word, and you see this word in different cases, in different situations, and its meaning can be a little flexible, so that's what we're talking about today. See, well, for you, Chaya, why don't you, not right now, but you can prepare while we're talking. Page 906, verse 17. Yeah, that's not in the Parsha. It's, and who, let's see, who else can handle this? Ken, I'm going to give you a line to read, so do you have a chumash?
I will.
Ken, your verse is going to be on page 301, and it's verse 10. And when we get to them, I'll call on you. Okay. Now, for the rest of us, who keep our thumbs in the right pages so we can turn and keep turning, we go to page 1165. And we start with, it's a very good translation they have here, but it's not completely accurate. So I want to take a look at that. Atem nitzavim hayom, you are standing today, kulchem, all y'all, lifnei Adonai Elohechem, before the Lord your God, roshechem, your chiefs, the heads of your tribes, shivtechem, your tribes, zakeinchem, your elders, shotrechem, your shoter, your magistrates, or what do they call it over here? Your officials. Kol ish Yisrael. Okay, so without any, with apologies to the author for not including what would be the women, just take a look. There's a little problem here, and something that's been noticed quite a bit by people who comment on the Torah. Let's take a look at this list. Rosh Chehem, one of your chiefs, one of your Roshes. Shivtechem, one of your tribes. Ziknechem, one of your elders. Shotrehem, one of your magistrates. Which word doesn't quite fit the rest of them? One of those four words. Okay. Okay. Chief is, you can have one chief, a single chief. You can have a single chief. It says one of your chiefs. Elder, you can have one of your elders. One official, you can have one of your magistrates. But the shevet, what's the shevet? A tribe. Now, how are you going to do that? One chief, one of your chiefs, one of your elders, one of your magistrates, one of your tribes. This confused a lot of people. Translators and commentators have long noticed this problem. Usually they have fixed it in the translation. Let's see what they do over here. They say, your tribal heads, as is Roshei Shivtechem, one of your tribes, the chiefs of your tribes. Now, this goes back a long way. The Septuagint, the Greek translation of actually the whole Tanakh, the legend about the Pentateuch is that the Septuagint is that it's so accurate because there were 70 people charged with translating it, and they all came up with exactly the same translation, so this is authoritative. Whether that happened or not is not really my concern. But it goes back, the Septuagint has it as one of the chiefs of your tribes. You can have one chief. So they fix it like that. In biblical Hebrew, the word shevet means tribe, as you said. It might have been confused with another, or identified with another similar sounding word, shofet. Shevet, shofet. A shofet was an individual, usually a judge. Shoftim, the whole book of Judges is named after this. But what that means by that association, sometimes this word has the more general sense, a shofet, of leader. When you look at the shoftim, the judges, you have like Joshua, who else was a judge? Devorah, Gideon. They weren't really so much judges. They didn't sit at the gates of the city trying cases. They were leaders. They were powerful people who knew how to lead. So keeping this in mind, it seems like shevet had a related meaning. It's also designated as a rod or a staff, a shevet, like when after the incident with Balak, they took out their shvatim and stuck it in the ground, and the one with from Levi sprouted, so you knew that the priests were going to be ruling things. So in the opening verse of our week's reading, God is calling on all sorts of individuals, from the loftiest chiefs and leaders down to the lowliest wood choppers and water carriers, to stand before him and receive God's final instructions. So that would help understand this in this case. In this case, instead of saying shiftechem, meaning your tribes, one of your rulers, one of your leaders. Remember, they had the 70 elders of Israel. They were important people. But this goes beyond that. The story of Shofet and Shevet go beyond this week's parsha. For example, when Jacob, get ready, Chaya, blesses his son Yehuda in the book of Genesis, chapter 49, verse 10, what does it say there? Chaya. Verse 10, Chaya. No, just verse 10. Lo yisod shevet. No, 17 was Ken's. Verse 10 is what I gave you. Page 301. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Ken, you're verse 49, verse 10. What's your Chaya? I'm sorry. I got you confused with Ken. Don't ask me how I did that. Okay. The third word there is what? Shevet. And what's the translation read?
Scepter.
Scepter. Meaning the king's rod. And also mechokek could be also translated as scepter, but here they put it into the ruler's staff. Sometimes they just switch those words. Sometimes one translation will have the first one be the ruler's staff and the second one be the scepter. But whichever one. It's clear that it doesn't mean tribe here. We have here an example of the word shevet that doesn't mean tribe. So, interestingly, do you know who Onkelos was? Onkelos. Onkelos was the guy who translated the Torah into Aramaic. When you go to a Yemenite synagogue and they get to the Torah service, I think I told you I went to one of these Yemenite services once and everything was going really fast until they got to this, the Torah reading. And there they read one verse and a little 10-year-old kid would read the verse in Aramaic because that was the tradition they had. It went back to when people spoke Aramaic. We don't throw anything out. We are the pack rats of religion. But when Onkelos translated it, he translated the staff not just as the symbol of the ruler, but as the ruler itself. A ruler will not depart from the tribe of Judah. And the Septuagint, again, translates it the same way. So later, it's proved not to be true. It didn't come out exactly that way, that a king would always be in charge of Israel. It fell by the wayside when they were conquered. But ever since in keeping with that, ever since the Jews returned from exile from Babylon in the 6th century BCE, there wasn't a king in Israel at all. As a result, this verse came to be reinterpreted as a ruler will not depart from the tribe of Judah forever, meaning that even if they left, they'll come back. In other words, there may not be a king for a while, but eventually the promised ruler, also known as the Mashiach, will be established. Now, this is a Hasidic interpretation. I'm using the words of Jim Kugel, who was explaining this. He says, when will the Messiah come? Well, we're frankly still waiting. And then he has one more example. The prophet Bilam proclaimed, I see it, but it is not now. I behold it, but it is not near. A star coming forth from Jacob and a shevet rising from Israel. Chaya, read that verse. Okay.
Which is translated here as scepter, but ruler makes much more sense.
Yes, exactly. The meaning of the word is they're taking the symbol for an object as the object itself. I'm trying to think, we do that in a bunch of places, whereas, the symbol for the object becomes the object. I'm drawing a blank right now, but maybe you can think of one. When I think of it, it'll be in the middle of a reading somewhere, and I'll just blurt it out. But what it meant clearly, as Chaya says, it makes more sense, was that a future leader will arrive in Israel, not just any leader, but one who's going to come to set everything right, and that'll be no small undertaking. So naturally, the people looking for the Messiah saw that in this verse. So we also see it in 2 Samuel 7:7, the words that I spoke with one of the Shiftei Israel, one of the leaders of Israel. When this verse was, but when they translated, they recast that verse in the book of Chronicles, when they retold the story of the kingdom. Instead of saying Shevet, it says Shofet, which is why they think that these are the two words that get confused. There may be two words that get confused, but to us it seems pretty clear that when you have a symbol like a scepter, the throne. When you say the throne, do you mean the chair? No, you mean the king that sits on it. There, we got one. Any questions? It's sort of an extension of early Torah study. All right then. Let's move along to our Parsha today, starting on 1165. Where are we starting today?
Very beginning.
Actually, yes, we do start 1165. We read the full Parsha of Nitzavim today. Okay. The whole book of Deuteronomy, as we've seen, has been saying, lo, these many weeks of our reading it. This is Moses' last speech to the people of Israel. We're getting close to the end now, just a few more Parshaot, and then we swing back to the beginning and start all over again. But the first thing Moses wants both the people then and us to know is that everybody's included. The address is to everyone, from the lowliest woodcutter and water carrier to the heads of the tribes, and you and your families who are all standing here today. We're on page 1165, verse 9. Amen.
Hakol havu godelo in a new kavod la Torah. Jambod Kohen, Jambod Ruvain, Vein Meira Kohen Kohen, Batem Abekibel Noechem,
Vaim kolchem hayom.
Roksat out from the Sabik Gusato, Batem Abekibel
Vaim
Noechem,
kolchem hayom.
Just want to make sure you're on your feet. I think it's better to be late than early. Oh, you don't need this. Right up here. Baruch Nabrach Lelam Baed.
אשר בחרבנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
אמן. אתם ניצבים היום כולכם לפני אדוני אלוהיכם, ראשיכם שבטיכם, זקניכם ושוטריכם, כל איש ישראל, טבחכם נשיכם וגרך שבקרב מחנך, מכותב עצך עד שואב ממך, לברכה בברית אדוני אלוהיך ובעלתו, אשר אדוני אלוהיך כורת עמך היום.
ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורה אמת וחיי עולם נוטה בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
Amen. Yamud Levi. Yamud Moshe Simcha ben Yaakov Levi Gittel. Levi.
We're still on page 1165, the last Hebrew line, verse 12. The startling thing in the second Aliyah is that it's as if Moses knew that his audience would not just be those who stood with him there that day. He's also talking about those who were not standing there that day. And since virtually all the Israelites were there, many people think, and most commentators think, that he means all future generations, which includes us.
Baruch et Adonai havarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai barach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'charvanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Leman Hakim Adcha Hayom La'olam. V'yeh lecha Elohim kasher diber lach v'kasher nishpa lavotecha l'Avraham l'Yitzchak l'Yaakov lo etchem levadchem anochi korei et habrit hazot v'et hala hazot ki et asher yeshno bo imanu ameid hayom livnei Adonai Eloheinu v'et asher eineinu bo imanu hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamot Shlishi.
The third Aliyah, beginning on page 1166, with verse 15. Moses here reminds the people about where they came from Egypt, and what was there was idolatry. And he warns the practicing idolatry, even in secret, because someone thinks it'll give them an advantage or that the consequences won't apply, is bound to find out. He'll be held a detestable thing, and all the people will be punished. The person who thinks this will be liable for every curse. The person who thinks this will be liable for every curse that we saw last week, but all the people will suffer these punishments. So if you read them, you know how serious that is. And the surrounding nations will say that Israel is being punished for breaking their word to God. So I guess the idea that when we find out that somebody is worshiping other gods, that we stop it, is frankly a little confusing. I think at first, just that one person will be punished. You know, you read that guy will be punished. Then we hear about the land being made infertile, and the nations talking about all of Israel not being faithful and suffering. And the Aliyah ends with the verse, concealed acts concern the Lord our God, but with overt acts, it's for us and for our children to ever apply all the provisions of this teaching. People in denial can cause damage and harm to other people. It was mentioned in early Torah study when we talked about that. This is kind of like the anti-vaxxers anthem. It won't happen to me.
Yamod Ruvain ben Eshel Tzvi v'Chava Shlishi.
Ruth said that.
Baruch et Adonai havarach.
Baruch
Baruch Adonai barach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan banu b'kol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki atem yadatem et asher yashavnu be'eretz Mitzrayim Vid asher avarnu b'keref hagoyim asher avartem. V'tiru et shikutzehem, v'et glulehem, eitz v'evan kesef v'zahav asher imahem. V'nishbachem isho isha, v'ho mishpacha ol shevet. Asher levavo v'neh hayom, yim Adonai Eloheinu, l'lechet la'avod et Elohei hagoyim ha'hem. V'nishbachem shoresh, poreh rosh v'lana. Vaya b'shamo et divrei Allah hazot v'itbarech b'vavo le'mohor shalom yeli ki b'shirut libi elech le'man sevot harava et hatz meya lo yovel Adonai seloach lo kiyaz yeshan af Adonai v'kinato ba'ishahu v'rav tzabo kol ha'ala haktuva b'sefer hazeh Umacha Adonai et Shemo mitachat hashamayim v'ivdilo Adonai l'ra mikol shivtei Yisrael kechol alot habrit haktuva b'sefer haTorah hazeh ve'amar hadur acharon b'nechem asher yakumu me'ach chayrem v'nachri asher yavo meretz rechoka v'ra'u et makot haaretz hahiv et achalueha asher chila Adonai ba gafrid v'melach Sreva kol arza, lo tizra v'lo tatzmiach, lo yaleva kol esev gama pechot, sedom v'mara, ad ma'ot tzvoyim, asher hafach Adonai ba'apo v'chamato, v'yamru kol hagoyim, ad ma'asa Adonai kacha la'aretz hazod, machari af hagadol hazeh, v'yamru, Al asher azvu et bit Adonai Elohei avotam asher koretimam bod karatimam bod sio otam eretz mitzrayim vayelchu v'yavdu Elohim achirim v'yishtachavu lahem Elohim asher lo yida'um v'lo chalak lahem v'yichar af Adonai ba'aretz hahu hahi v'avi aleha et kol haklala haktuva b'sefer hazeh V'yid shem Adonai me'al matam ba'af v'chema v'ketzef gadol v'yashlichim el eretz acheret kayom hazeh hadis tarot l'Adonai Eloheinu v'niglot lanu l'vanenu ad olam la'asot et kol divrei haTorah hazot.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Natan lanu Torat emet hayei olam v'zavet Eloheinu. Baruch Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen. Yamud Revi'i.
The fourth aliyah.
Yamud Dover ben Yehuda Revi'i.
Fourth aliyah begins on page 1169 with, actually 1169 at the beginning of chapter 30. It tells us when a person of our nation repents from the wrongs done in the third aliyah, while in the exile that was part of the punishment, God will take them back in love and restore their fortunes. I just want to point out, those of you paying attention, on page 1168, toward the bottom, you see that one word with all the dots over it? When it says, actually it's two words, lanu ulevanenu, that the hidden things are to God and the revealed things are to us and to our children. And it stresses that us and to our children means that we're talking not only to this one group, but to all the descendants of that group, like you.
Baruch et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach le'olam bo'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bochar bonu mikol amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'yah ki yavo alecha kol hadvarim ha'eleh. Habracha v'haklala asher natati lefanecha. V'ashevota elevavcha v'chol hagoyim asher edichacha na'ilohecha shama v'shavta Adonai Elohecha v'shamata b'kolo kechol asher anochi b'tzavcha hayom ata vanecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'shav Adonai Elohecha et shevutcha v'richamecha v'shav וקיבצך מכל העמים אשר הפיצך אדוני אלוהיך שמה. אם יהיה נדיחך בקצה השמיים משם, יקבצך אדוני אלוהיך ומשם ייקחך. והביאך אדוני אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר ירשו אבותיך וירשת, והיטיבך והרבך מאבותיך. ולמל אדוני אלוהיך את לבבך ואת לבב זרעך, לאהבה את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך וכל נפשך למען חייך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chai olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Talmud Chamishi.
The fifth aliyah, verse 7 of chapter 30 on chapter 1170. Now, once the people have been restored, the fifth aliyah talks about those curses that we would have endured falling on our enemies that oppressed us. Come back with a good heart, and God will take care of you.
Talmud Sarah Bat Yisrael Rachel Chamishi. Baruch Rachel.
Amen.
Amen. V'natan Adonai Elohecha et kol halot ha'ele alevecha v'alsonecha asher yidaflucha v'ata tashuv v'sham ta b'kol Adonai v'asita et kol mitzvotav asher anochi mitzavcha hayom v'tircha Adonai Elohecha b'chol masei yadecha b'pri v'itnecha v'fri v'emtecha v'fri admadcha l'tova ki yashuv Adonai Lasos alecha lito, kasher sas alavotecha, ki tishma bekol Adonai Elohecha, lishmor mitzvotav chukotav, haktuva b'sefer Torah hazeh, ki tashuv el Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha. Amen. Amod Shishi Amod Ben Tzion Ben Baruch V'Tzipora Shishi.
The sixth aliyah continues on verse 11 at the bottom of page 1170. We find what I call an old friend here in the sixth aliyah. Moses says, "This thing I'm teaching you is not too baffling. Lo b'shamayim hi." It's not in the heavens that you have to leave earth and go up to the skies and find it and understand it. It's not across the sea. It's close. You can do it. You can follow this plan. It's right here, and it's simple.
Baruch et Adonai hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Borach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai v'rach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Toratav. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki ha-mitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzvavcha hayom lo nifleiti mimcha v'lo rechoka hi lo b'shamayim hi le'mor mi ya'aleh lanu hashamayma v'yikacheha lanu v'yashminu otav v'nasena lo me'avor layom lo me'ivir layom hi le'mor mi ya'avor lanu el ivir hayam v'yikacheha lanu v'yashminu otav v'nasena כי קרוב אליך הדבר מאוד בפיך ולבבך לעשותו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chai olam notav b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yamot Shvi.
The seventh aliyah begins on page 1173 with verse 15. Another classic here. God says, see, Moses actually says, see, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. Walk in God's ways, and God will bless you. Turn away from God's ways, you will perish. With heaven and earth as my witness, I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse, so choose life, and God will reward you with the land that you're about to enter.
Yamud Avraham ben Ari Basha. Shvi'i. Right up top.
Baruchu Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai Barak Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'na'ata lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Reina dadi levanecha hayom et hachayim et hatov et hamavet et hara. Asher anochi mitzavcha hayom li'ahava. Et Adonai Elohecha lechet b'rachav v'lishmor mitzvotav v'chukotav v'mishpotav v'chayita v'ravita v'virachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama l'rishta. Vim yifne levavcha v'lo tishma v'nidachta v'ishtacha v'ita l'Elohim acharim avadetam hagidati lachem hayom ki avot ovedun lo tarechun yamim al adama asher ata over al hayardein lavo shama et hayardein lavo shama l'rishta. Haydoti bachem hayom, et hashemayim et haaretz, v'chaim v'mavet natati levanecha habracha v'haklala, v'charta b'chayim, l'man tichea ata v'zarecha, li'havaha et Adonai Elohecha, v'shmo b'kol l'davkabo, ki hu chayecha v'orech gamecha, l'shevet al adama, asher nishba Adonai lavotecha, l'Avraham, Litzchak li'Yaakov, latein lahem.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah shemet v'chayei olam notav v'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. We covered the Torah. We'll take a small break before bringing up the maftir, where we will be singing the Misha Berach. If you didn't get the note that I sent out yesterday, Elaine Sokol belongs on that list now.
Misha Berach avoteinu mikar haberacha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misha Berach imotenu mikar haberacha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing, with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Yidgadav Yigadashimi Rabbah.
Amen.
Biamad Yirachirute, Biamelich Machlute, Bechayechon
Uvyomecho,
V'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Ba'agala, Uvizman Kari Limrel.
Amen.
Yesh Meiraba Mevora, Leolam Lo Me'omaya, Yidbarach, Yidbarach Vishtabach, Vidbavit Mavina Sevi, Yidadar, Vidale, Vidala, Shemede Kudeja,
Brechu,
Lehila Mingo Birlachata, Vishirata,
Tushbechata v'nechemata.
Damiram Yama Vimrel.
Amen. Verse 18? Isn't that what it's supposed to do? Yeah, no, okay, or 18. You can all be seated.
Yamod Nachum and Eliezer Esther Mavtir Chazak.
We're starting on verse 18 on page 1171.
You got a tilachem? Okay, just a second. Right here.
Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Yeah. Hold on a second.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it, Lechem.
Wow, where can I find this? Yeah. Oh, I'm up the wrong page. Yeah, you moved a column, yeah. Amehini garati lachem hayom, ki oveito v'idun lo tarichun yamim al adama, asher ata over et hayardim, lavo shama l'rishta, ha'idoti v'achem hayom, et hashemayim et haaretz, ha'chayim ba'mavet natati levadecha, ha'bracha v'ha'klala, v'acharta b'chayim, למען תחיה אתה בזרעך, לאהבת אדוני אלוהיך לשמוע בקולו ולדבקה בו, כי הוא חייך ואורך ימיך, לשבת על האדמה, אשר נשבע אדוני לאבותיך לאברהם, ליצחק ליעקב, לתהי להם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen. Amen. Magbiah. Who's time? Yamana Golel.
All right, Tim Yagubi. Okay. As the Torah is seated, you can be seated. Haftarah today on page 1180, we have at last reached the seventh Haftarah of consolation. Less than 8 weeks ago, we relived the destruction of the temples in Jerusalem. Our climb out of that abyss has taken us liturgically these 7 weeks, starting with mournful comfort, sad lament, and reassurances. This last Haftarah of consolation begins with strong and encouraging language. I greatly rejoice in the Lord. My whole being exults in my God. I will not be silent, no longer forsaken, no longer desolate. The prophet is declaring on behalf of the people, I am back and there's no stopping me. God, says the prophecy, will have redeemed the people and they will have returned better than ever. Shikoy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim v'ritzav v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek. So, asis Baronai, Tagel nafshi belohai, ki hil b'shani bigdei yesha, meil tzedakah yatani,
כחתן יכהן פאר, וכלכלה תדחה. כי הארץ תוציא צמחה, וכגנה זרועיה תצמיח. כן אדוני אלוהים, יצמיח צדקה ותהילה נגד כל הגויים. למען ציון לא אחשה, ולמען ירושלים לא אשקוט. עד יצא חנוגה צדקה וישועתה כלפיד יבר. וראו גויים צדקך וכל מלכים כבודך. וקורא לך שם חדש אשר פי אדוני יקבנו. והיית עטרת תפארת ביד אדוני, וצניף מלוכה מכף אלוהיך. לא יאמר לך עוד עזובה, ולארצך לא יאמר עוד שממה, כי לך יקרא חפצי בה, ולארצך פעולה. כי חפץ אדוני בך, וארצך תיבהל. כי יבל בחור בתולה, יבלו פתנייך, ומשוש חתן על כלה, יציץ עלייך אלוהייך. עד חומותייך ירושלים, הפקדתי שומרים. כל היום וכל הלילה תמיד לא יחשו, המזכירים את אדוני, אל תמיד לכם, ואל תיתנו תמיד לו, עד יכונן, ועד ישים את ירושלים תהילה בארץ. נשבע אדוני בימינו ובזרוע עוזו, אם אתן את דגנך עוד מאכל לאויבייך, ואם ישתו בני נכר תירושך אשר יגעת בו. כי מעצביו יאכלו והיללו את אדוני, ומקבציו ישתו בחצרות קודשי. עברו בשערים, פנו דרך העם, סולו המסילה, סקלו מאבן, הרימו נס על עמים. הנה אדוני השמיע אל קצה הארץ, אמרו לבת ציון, הנה ישך בה, הנה שכרו איתו ופעולתו לפניו, וקראו להם עם הקודש גאולי אדוני, ולך יקרא דרושה עיר לא נעזבה. מזבח מדום חמוץ בגדים מבצרה, זה הדור בלבושו, צוער ברוב כוחו. אני מדבר בצדקה רב להושיע, מדוע אדום ללבושך ובגדיך כדורך בגת. פורה דרכתי לבדי, ומהמים איני איש איתי, וידרכם ביפי, וירמסם בחמתי. ויש נצחם על בגדי, וכל מבושי הגלתי. כי יום נקם בליבי, ושנת גאולי באה. ויביט ואין עוזר, וישתומם ואין צומח. ותושלי זרועי, וחמתי היא שמחתני. ויבוז עמים ביפי, וישקרם בחמתי, ויוריד לארץ נצחם. חסדי אדוני אזכיר תהילות אדוני, kol asher gemalanu Adonai, v'rav tuv leveit Yisrael, asher gemalam kerachamav ucherov chasadav, vayomer achami hema, banim lo yishakeru, vayi lahem lemoshiach. B'chotzaratam lo tsar, umalach panav hoshiam, b'avato uvechemlato hu ga'alam, vayinadlem, vayinasem, kol yemei olam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Tzur kol alamim, tzadik bechol adorot, Ayel haneman haomer b'yotzeh, hamdaber kayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek. Neman atahu Adonai Eloheinu, v'nemarim devarecha, b'davar echad b'farecha, achar lo yeshu brekam, ki el melech neman v'rachaman atah, Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el haneman b'chol dvarav.
Amen.
Rachem al Tzion ki beit chayenu v'lalu vad nefesh toshia b'mhera b'yameinu. Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Mesamech Tzion b'vaneha.
Amen.
Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu B'Eliyahu Hanavi Avdecha U'Malchut Beit David Meshichecha B'mhera Yavo V'Yagel Libeinu Al Kiso Lo Yeshev Zar V'Lo Yinchalu Od Acherim Et Kvodo Ki V'Shem Kachecha Neshbata Lo Shelo Yichben Neirot Le'olam Va'ed Baruch atah Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Magen David.
Amen.
Al haTorah v'al avodah v'al hanviim v'al yom haShabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu lekdushav limnucha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mvorchim otach yitbarech shimecha b'fi kol chai tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai
Shemo.
Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Throw candy, throw candy. Okay. Before we get on to page 148 in the Siddur, I was reminded that since we had early Torah study today, it's also Simcha Shabbos, and there's a few things, and there are people here that deserve a mazel tov. Birthdays include September 4th, Richard Bondar. Happy birthday. That's today. See if we have any cake in the back.
Yeah.
September 5th, Helen Bresanov. Jan, you'll carry those good wishes with us. September 10th, Jorge Girakilis. I'm sure I'm butchering that. And, Nancy Levin. Ooh. Happy birthday tomorrow. September 15th, Rose Starrow. September 18th, Tamar Breton.
All right.
September 20th, Karen Pulverman. September 21st, Thelma Turner. September 24th, Ram Ronen. September 26th, Beatrice Macias. And September 28th, Harriet Pector and Charlene Schwed. That's a little embarrassing for me to say that the list of anniversaries, there's one anniversary this month, and it's ours. And that's tomorrow. Mazel tov to Polly and Ed Schechter on the birth of a, now, did they have a new great-grandchild, don't they?
But that's also a new grandchild.
That's also a new grandchild for Ed and Polly?
Yeah.
For their kid.
Oh, okay. So anyway, it's Harrison Oliver Stenson Schechter, the third. And congratulations to Dorothy Weiner on the birth of her great-granddaughter, Paula Barry Katz, daughter of Dorothy and Daniel Katz. And Mazal Tov to Mayan and Chris Sellers on the birth of their daughter, Maxine Mimi Sellers. So altogether, a great big
Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, Yehelanu, 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 L'chol Yisrael, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, L'chol Yisrael, David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'kayam, David Melech Yisrael, Chai v'kayam.
And now we'll continue on page 148. We'll read the bottom paragraph as a prayer for our country. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. Let us say, Amen. Lo yisa goy al goy, cherev lo yumedu od milchama. Lo yisa goy al goy, cherev lo yumedu od milchama. And let us all say,
Amen.
it was a sad week last week. It was tough getting out of Afghanistan. We lost some people, and here they are. Navy Corpsman Max W. Soviak, Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Knaus, Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover, Jr., Marine Corps Sergeant Johnny Rosario Picardo, Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole L. G., Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, Marine Corps Corporal Dagan W. Page, Marine Corps Corporal Humberto A. Sanchez, Marine Corps Lance Corporal David L. Espinoza, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared M. Schmitz, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley J. McCollum, Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, and Marine Corps Lance Corporal Karim Nikuri. And to those, I say, Makor Chaim, source of all life, may we ask for a quick end to hostilities around the world, domestic and foreign. And may the swift and safe return of our young people, our young men and women, return to their homes, and let us all say.
Amen.
Page 149 is prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Sheba Shemayim, Sor Yisrael v'go'alo, Barek Medinat Yisrael, V'shitz Michat Gulatenu, B'yevrach Hastecha, Ufros Alecha, Surkat Shlomecha, Ushlach Orcha V'yamitcha V'rosheha Soreha V'yoetzeha, V'takneim Be'etzah Tova Milfanecha, Chazek et Yidei Meginei Eretz Kodshenu, V'anchilem Eloheinu Yeshua, V'yater Nitzachon Teatrem, V'natata Shalom Ba'aretz, Simchat Olam Liyoshveha V'nomar. Amen. And as you can tell by all the excitement of who's coming to the stage right now, it's Ashrei time.
Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha Od Yahalucha Selah. Ashrei Shekakalo. Om Sharonayla. Tila LeDavid Armim Kalo Kaka Melech Ve'avraka Shimka Leolam Va'ed.
Chol Yom Avrochecha Shimcha Leolam Va'ed.
Gadol Naimim Kula Meo V'litula Toin Cheker.
Dor L'dor Shabbat Masecha V'rotecha Yagidu
Hadar Kefo Chotecha V'difreini Flotecha Sika.
V'zuz L'rotecha Yomer Chasa Prena
Zeker Raftu Kaya Biu V'sika Rekaya Nenu.
Chanun V'rachum Adonai Erech Apayim V'dal Chased
Tov Adonai Lako V'rakamav Koma Asaf.
V'yucharai Kol Masecha V'chasidecha Yivarchucha
Givo Mochutaka Yomeru Gevuracha Yetaberu.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malchutcha Malchol Amim Memshafteka Bekol Dor Vador.
אמן.
Nofli Keflachol Dofi Hine koe la kayasa peru fanotin lahen o klambito.
פותח את ידיך, מסביר לך חי רצון.
Sadik Adonai pekol traka vikasi beko masaf.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Ritsoni av yaseh ve'eshavatam shema v'yoshiyeh.
שומר לו את כובע, וכל רשעים ישמיד.
Tilat Adonai yidaber pi vivarek o basar shekotrol elam va'ed.
ואנחנו נבורך ימך ועד עולם. הללויה.
Okay, got it.
Page 153.
Shem Adonai, Keniskav Shem Adonai, Adonai, Vishamayim, Vayarem Keren Yamo, Teila Lekol, Masidam, Livnei Yisrael,
Am Kerovo.
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Miss Morle Davi. Adonai b'nei, Avul Adonai, Avovaos, Avul Adonai Givot Shemo, Ishtak Avul Adonai Be'arakol Desh, Kodonai Hamayim El Kafol Dirim, Adonai Hamayim Rabim, Adonai Ba'koach. Kol Adonai Be'adar, Kol Adonai Shover Arasim, Vayshar Be'adonai El Levanon, Varkidim Koma Levanon Visirio, Kimo Ve'reimim, Kol Adonai Hosula Moesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Lehol Laylo, Vayesof Yerod V'Rei Kalo Kulo Mer Kavod, Adonai Lamabu Yashem, Yeshem Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Li'amo Yitein, Adonai Yivarech et Amo v'Shalom. The ark is closed, but we remain standing for the Chatzi Kaddish that ends the Torah service and takes us into the Musaf, again, page 155.
Yid Gadol, Vid Gadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'Alamad, Yirach, Yeraludei, V'Amalech, Malchutei, B'Chayichon V'Yomechon, V'Chayidech B'Ed Yisrael, B'Agala, Uvid Mahar Kahari V'Imrel.
Amen.
Yesh Mei Rabbah Mivorach, Li'olam Lo Me'omaya, Yid Barach V'Ishtabach, V'Itba V'Itma V'Itnaseh V'Yid Hadar, V'Yid Aleh V'Yid Alal, Shemei Kudishah,
Rechu.
V'Hila Mingo Birlachada V'Shirada, Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imrel. Amen.
We will daven, we will pray together on page 156B and 157 for the Kedusha, and then we'll complete the Amidah silently from pages 158 to 161.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'ganei HaMahot, V'zocher Chasdei Avot, V'mevir Goel Livnei Bneihem, V'man Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer Ufalkid Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magin Ara, Ufalkid Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechei Midim Ahada, Rav Hoshia, Morid Hata, Mechal Kel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayim Eidim, Birachamim Rabim, Samech Nafim Ve'Ravech Olim, U'Madir Asurim, U'Mekayim Emunatah, Lishenei Avar, Michama Chama Givuron, Umida Melach, Melech Mimi, Umichaya, Umatmeach Yeshua, V'nemanat Achayot Medim, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechei HaMedim, Naharizecha v'nahagdishecha Kisotzia Sarvei Kodesh Hamagdishim Shimcha Bakodesh Kakatu Hayad Neviecha Vigarazel Zeviamar Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzivot, Melech Haaretz Givodo, Givodo, Mahali Olam, Misharido Sholim Zelazer, Ayim Yigom Givodo, Lilmadam Baruch Yomeru, Baruch Givodo Adonai Bimgoma, 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 Livem Berachamim. V'yachonam, v'yachonam mi'achadim shemo. Eher v'avoger b'choyam David, pamayim b'yava, Shema omrim, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Eloheinu, Avinu, Magenu, Mosheinu, Vehu, 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 Yashmeinu, V'yashmeinu, Birachama, 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 Sheinit, 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 L'yenei Kochai, L'yolachem Elohim.
Ani Adonai Elohechem.
V'divri kodecha katuv lemor,
Yimloch Adonai L'olam, Melech Tzion, L'dor v'ador, Hallelujah.
L'dor v'ador nagid golecha, L'netzach netzach v'nishanecha nagid, Shivchacha Elohim v'pil l'mushalam ba'el, Ki amach l'bakadosh ata, Baruch ata Adonai,
Baruch Hu, Baruch Shema.
Ha'el HaKadosh.
158 to 161. We end the Musaf and head into our concluding prayers on page 181 with Kaddish Shalem.
Amen.
Amen.
Yesh meira mevorach, yolam olam me'omaya, yitbarach, yitbarach yishtabach, yitbarach nomenasiv, yitbarach yitbarach shemei, yitbarach
Brichu.
Elam yikabech adav v'shivadav, shmukadav nechmadav, demram ve'yimreu.
Amen.
Yitkabel sodan vodon l'chol Yisrael, kadam v'vod v'shmaya ve'yimreu.
Amen.
Yishtab alav v'shemaya v'chayim alinu v'kol Yisrael ve'yimreu.
Amen.
Oseh shalom v'mrama, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al God Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al God Yisrael, Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Yahweh Israel, Amen.
You may be seated. 182 in Kelohenu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Gadoneinu, Ein Gemakeinu, Ein Gemoshienu, Michelaheinu, Michadoneinu, Michemakeinu, Michemoshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Makeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Makeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Makeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Zekniro, Avoteinu, Livanecha Eketoret Asami.
183 Elenu L'Shabeach.
Avinu L'Shabeach L'Adonai, L'Atik
Gedula Leotzer Breshit.
Shalom
Nitanu Kiratzah.
Shalom Samanu,
Yehod Adama.
Shalom
Elkeinu Kahem.
Vigor Aleinu, Kechol Amonah, Vayamnu Korim, Umishon Avim Umodim, Lifnei Kelech, Makri HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu B'Shamayim Ve'oseh Haaretz, Hamadav Yikarohu B'Shamayim Nimaho,
Miromim. Hu Eloheinu.
Kagatzuz b'tzoratecha, Adonai Eloheinu le'olam va'ed, v'nemar v'haya Adonai, limelech al kol haaretz, v'yamahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shema,
You may be seated. In solemn testimony to the unbroken faith which has linked one generation to the next, those in mourning or observing a yahrzeit now rise, well, not now, but in a minute, will rise to praise God's name with the words of the mourner's Kaddish. But first, yahrzeits observed this week include Rose Feintek, Helen E. Grossman, Eileen Gelfman-Kiefer, Ida Mandel, Phyllis Rhea Rosen, Fanny Nissenbaum, Dorothy Soloff, Dr. Joshua Yehuda Alpern, Beatrice Eiferman, Harry Charmetz, Joseph Israel Cohen, James Fisher, Peter Fono, Alexander Rothbard, Esther Mendelovitz Weisbach, Dora Bletcher, Hyman Frankel, Ron Illians, Bella Raphael, Max Kaufman, Beatrice Korn, Rose Tochner, Harry Fodeman, Mary Friedman, Celia Rosen, E. Leo Young, and Yetta Zimmerman. Mordechai Kaddish is on page 184. And if you like, you may stand next to the person saying Kaddish to support them as they do so. Yitgadal v'yitgadash semei rabbah.
Amen.
Ma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Bagala v'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'meyomaya. Barak v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. Dar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha b'rechu. La min kol birchata v'shirata. Mishpechata v'nechemata. Damiron milma v'yimru amen. Hei shlama rabba min shmaya. Chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol v'yimru. Amen. And everyone else can now rise for Kiddush.
V'shamiru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, l'asod et ha-Shabbat, l'idoro damri dalam, be'egni u'vei b'nei Yisrael ha'oti, l'olam gishesh adamim, as Adonai, et ha-shamayim et ha'aretz, u'vayom ha'shvi, Shabbat v'yinavas, ad ki mirach l'naydem ha-Shabbat v'yagdasheu, Savrayim ha'ram rabotai,
L'chaim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, borei pri ha'gafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kedushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, al netilat yadayim. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Shabbat Shalom. Okay, before I go through all these things, I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming high holidays. You think back last year, we could not gather, but this is still going to be kind of a unique year of the COVID era. And that is that we're concerned about your security, your safety, your health. And for that reason, you might note in here, we've spaced the chairs somewhat. And for the high holidays, with safety and security and the health in mind, we're going to require that everyone who's inside the building has been fully vaccinated. And I want to thank those who have gone ahead, contacted the office, so we have a master list where we've gotten your proof of vaccination. If you haven't turned it into the office and you're going to come in here and you expect to come inside, please bring proof of vaccination. For those people who are not fully vaccinated on Tuesday and Wednesday during the services and on Yom Kippur, we'll be streaming the service, and we're going to put our plan, if everything goes well, we'll have a TV out by the gazebo out here, and so you're welcome to join us. You're not fully vaccinated by being outside and viewing it there. I also want to ask everyone to realize, because of the way we've gotten the seat space out and that there's limited seating, please know that it's kind of going to be first come, first serve in here, and there'll be plenty of chairs out in the multi-purpose room for overflow. So please, let's consider all our other congregants. Maybe you come early, you decide you've been inside a while, you want to go out there, let somebody else take your seats. That would be greatly appreciated. So we're going to do our best to really have a really nice and wonderful high holiday season. So with that in mind, I'll go on to the rest of the announcements. We're back with our transportation program, no charge Lyft rides to and from TBE for services, any other programs we're having. You'll want to contact Jack Sikowski, Ken Levin, or Barry Klatzker to make sure you're taken care of in that program if you need that assistance. Let's see, for those of you who were here last night, we had a very nice special service with Marcia Tilshin, who we want to thank for being here, and there will be some upcoming programs with her, so please watch the tidings and watch for flyers and different announcements from the office and up here at the Bema. And yes, and the website. Be sure you check the websites, which also has times of all the services. Thank you. Let's see. As you know, we had early Torah study today. Let's see. The 5782 calendar is a September tiding. It's an other flyers can be found in the multi-purpose room. You can still get high holiday honey. It's $13 plus $5.50 for shipping. So if you're still interested, that is possible. We're also taking New Year's greetings. So we had them in the last tidings, but if you didn't get in, you want to get in, get your greetings in for the next tidings, be sure to contact the office. Again, check the website for scheduled services. If you have anybody you need to add to the Mishbeirach list, please contact the office to add or remove names. And I think I've got everything. So thank you very much. Yes, Dick? Lulav and Etrov. Anybody have any idea on?
We've ordered 10 sets, but if you want one, call Karen on.
Okay, so if you want Lulav and Etrov, please call the office. We have some sets that are on order, but if you want to make sure, be sure you call the office. And with that, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Symbolically, as being the last Shabbat of this year, 5781, I close the Luach, and I thank my Gabayim throughout the whole year, at least since June. It's a pleasure to have you, all of you, and especially my Gabayim, helping me with the Torah reading. So thank you very much.
And page 187.
Adonolam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzuni Ra, Tid Nasa V'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, V'vado Yimloch Nora, V'hu Haya, V'hu Ver, V'hu Yeh B'tifara, Adonolam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzuni Ra, Tid Nasa V'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni, V'av Shehilo Le'achbira, V'li Reshit, V'li Dachlit, V'lo Ha'od V'ha'misra, Adonolam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzuni Ra, Tid Nasa V'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shemo
Nikra.
V'hu Eli V'chai Goali, V'tzar Chavli B'yitzara, V'hu Nisi U'manosli, Minat Kosi B'yom Ekra, Adonolam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzuni Ra, Tid Nasa V'chefza Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'biyado Avgid Rochi, B'dishan V'ha'ira, V'imruchi Yiviyati, Adonai li v'lo ira, Adonolam, Asher Malach, B'terem kol yitzir nivra. Eden asa v'chem tzakol. Azai melech shema nikra. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom and Shana Tova.
Not over.